Hey guys, Austin here, and welcome back to another Pixelmon video here on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the top 5 most difficult Pokemon to capture or even find in your Pixelmon world. So if you guys have been enjoying these types of videos on the channel, be sure to leave me a like, subscribe if you're new. Let me know in the comments down below what your personal opinion is on your top 5 most difficult Pokemon to encounter in Pixelmon is. And let's get right into this. And we're starting things off with the mythical Pokemon of Mew. So Mew's an interesting one because back in the day, Mew spawned in the jungle biomes, now the modified jungle, and then further now, Mew only can spawn in the jungle temples now at a very rare chance. So this Pokemon is actually the first on our rares to encounter because not only do you have to meet the conditions of finding the jungle temple, you don't have to roll that chance of it actually appearing here. And with how many legendary Pokemon that actually spawn in the jungle biome of Minecraft now on top of it, like the Tapu lineup of Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Fini, and Tapu Bulu, etc., I think Genesect can spawn here, Zarude, I believe, can spawn here, etc. It's a lot of legendary Pokemon, so to roll that chance of spawning a legendary on top of rolling the chance for Mew to spawn, on top of rolling for it to spawn on the Jungle Temple, it's just a whole thing, and the fact that it takes that much is why Mew is placed on this list of top 5 Pokemon that are very difficult to get in Pixelmon. Moving on to number 2, we have Mewtwo. So I'm just going to throw Mewtwo out right here just because there's no point in putting him anywhere else. So Mewtwo is extremely difficult to capture because he doesn't necessarily spawn naturally in your world. You have to get the whole cloning machine set up, and once you do that, you have to get Mew. So before you could even have a chance to get Mewtwo, you have to get a Mew. And then you have to put Mew in the cloning machine. You have to clone it 3 times. Roll that RNG chance of getting Dittos. And then when that's used up, not only do you have to do it all over again, because your machine most likely has broken, you have to get another Mew on top of that. Because I believe, I don't know if they've changed it since, but I believe Mew only can work 3 times in the cloning machine. And then you need to get a new Mew to extract the DNA from it. So that on top of it just makes it all the more difficult for Mewtwo to even appear in your world because you have to do all the steps of getting Mew and then get Mewtwo. And then if you want to Mega Evolve Mewtwo into its X and Y form, you have to find those naturally spawning as Mega Bosses and defeat them to get their Mega Stones in order to get Mewtwo. So that is why Mew and Mewtwo are the first 2 on the list, because not only do they go hand in hand and being super difficult to acquire, you literally can't get Mewtwo without getting Mew. So very difficult, very impossible. Let's move on to the next one. So our next bad boy on the list is, of course, Rayquaza. Rayquaza throughout the years has been difficult to acquire because not only does it spawn in the higher altitudes of mountain biomes, now you have to worry about getting it while it's in the air, because Rayquaza will spawn in any of the mountainous biomes now. However, unlike before, it immediately will spawn and shoot in the air. Let me show you what I mean. So if I Pokespawn in a Rayquaza really quickly, let me show you exactly what is going to happen. So I'll spawn him in. You'll see he immediately takes flight in the air and starts flying around like the Pidgey. So the reason why this is difficult is because not only is Minecraft's altitude now a lot crazier and you have to get higher up for these spawns to even happen, Rayquaza will immediately start flying away from the mountain. So let's say you're even in a mountain biome and you're like, oh, look, Rayquaza, time to go get it. It's going to be flying away. So if you don't have a flying mount, you're not even going to be able to go after Rayquaza, more or less capture it. And because like all the legendaries, it's super difficult to get, you're going to spend a lot of time in the air. And if you don't have enough balls, if you don't have a Master Ball, if you don't have the means of flying after it, or the means of actually aiming to hit it while it's in the air, you're not even going to be able to get it. And on top of that, to Mega Evolve Rayquaza, you need to get a Mega Rayquaza boss to even spawn, go through all the steps again, and hopefully defeat it in battle in order to have Rayquaza meet its maximum form and fullest potential. So that is why Rayquaza is on the list for most difficult. I should also mention there's no real order to these legendaries in terms of like least difficult, most difficult, besides their generations. And I'm going in order of the generations they were released in. But do let me know in the comments if you think one is more difficult than the other. But moving on from Rayquaza, we have Zygarde. Zygarde is the next on the list for the most difficult Pokemon to capture. Why? Because you have to find Zygarde cells. That's why. These little things that supposedly still spawn naturally in the Pixelmon world on tree logs or like in the grass, etc. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever personally seen a Zygarde cell or like main core Zygarde? Let me know, please. I'm really curious. Of course, other than that, the other way of getting Zygarde is to have it spawn in a raid den. Since those are a thing now in Pixelmon, you can, of course, have a Zygarde spawn in your raid den, capture it that way. But getting it to its 100% form, that's a very tiny one, which literally does not spawn naturally in your world. You literally have to get the base form Zygarde here first, and then give it cells in order to get to its 100% form, because even in the raid dens, it only spawns at the 50% form, and then you have to level it up to the 100% form, which makes it all the more difficult and near impossible to acquire. But just keep in mind that this is difficult not just because it literally does not spawn in your world besides raid dens, but because you have to locate and capture these Zygarde cells in order to even power up one that you may or may not get to begin with. Moving on to the second to final one, we have Necrozma. So Necrozma is on my list because although he's a simple thing to capture, the forms in which he can take, the way at which you get him to his maximum potential is a lot. So I figured I'd start things off by just talking about Necrozma first, then going through that. So of course Necrozma spawns naturally in your world, I believe, in the Dark Forest biomes. And then if you want to fuse him with Solgaleo or Lunala, you have to capture them as well in their respective biomes. Actually, I don't think they do spawn naturally. You have to get Cosmog. So you have to get Cosmog, evolve it, a day or night into Solgaleo or Lunala, fuse it with Necrozma, and then to get Ultra Necrozma, you have to fuse all three together. So you have to literally hunt for 3 Pokemon to get this thing to its maximum form, power, and potential. But then after that, it's just, you have the most crazy Pokemon ever. But the fact that you have to go for 3 different Pokemon to get this thing sort of at its maximum capabilities is why this thing is more difficult to acquire. And I know in Ultra Space you can do the raid dens in there to get Cosmog a lot easier, or just find it naturally in there, but it's still on the list because of that. And I do have an honorable mention before we move on to the last one, and that is Arceus. So the reason why Arceus is in my honorable mentions as potentially also a very difficult Pokemon to capture is not only do you have to get all the, 18 or 19 plates, give to the Chalice to get the flute, then you have to go all the way to Spear Pillar to summon Arceus in. So you have to go to 2 different structures, arguably, get this Pokemon after getting all the items, which are only dropped from like bosses, different areas in your world. Like literally, I believe every single structure in vanilla Minecraft has a chance of spawning one of the 18 plates. And then you have to get them all, collect them all, come to the Chalice, get your flute, go to Spear Pillar, then summon Arceus, and then hopefully capture Arceus. At that point, if you don't have a Master Ball, I don't know what to tell you. But let's say you didn't, it would be even harder to capture. That is why Arceus is an honorable mention, because it's not necessarily hard in the sense of getting RNG. Well, it is a lot of RNG, but like, I feel like Arceus has been one of those ones that people know how to speedrun now, just because you know where all the plates can spawn at this point. You know, to get them all, just a matter of time. So it's not necessarily difficult at that point, because again, by all that looting you do, by all those bosses you defeat, you're going to have a Master Ball ready to catch Arceus, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen. So that is why it's on an honorable mention. Of course, it could make the list in your guys' thoughts and opinions, but for me, I don't feel like it meets that sort of difficulty level that the other 5 have. And then finally, our bonus one, we have Eternamax Eternatus, the big bad, impossible to acquire boy himself is even going to spawn in this one. Yeah, so Eternamax Eternatus literally is something that cannot naturally spawn in the world. I don't believe it can spawn in raid dens. I don't think there's any way of acquiring this thing. While regular Eternatus can spawn, I think, in the swamp biomes of all things, and in the end, you can capture. It's actually pretty easy to capture. It has one of the highest catch rates of Pixelmon. But the fact that its alternate form, its max powered form, is not even implemented as something you can acquire in survival mode, that is why it has made this list as the final impossible to acquire Pokemon, because you literally can't get it. It's impossible. So guys, that is going to do it for my top 5, arguably top 6, most difficult to acquire Pokemon within Pixelmon. Let me know in the comments down below if this list is something that you agree with, or if you have any others you'd like to swap around, or ones that you think I didn't mention that should make the list. I'm curious to know, and I do hope to see you all in the next video. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe, and goodbye.